The engines arrived on a flatbed at 7 in the morning, 9 of them chained in a rusted heap, and the driver handed Marcus Hale a card that smelled like perfume. Thought you could use some more scrap for your collection. Victoria Ashford's signature, CEO of Ashford Prestige Motors, paid for same-day delivery, so the whole neighborhood would see the crane lower 2 tons of seized metal onto his gravel lot. She had done it as a joke. She did not know that the man in coveralls had once been lead restoration specialist at Rheingold Coachworks in Stuttgart, that his hands had rebuilt pre-war Bugattis for clients who never asked the price, that the last car he certified before Claire died, sold at auction for $4.2 million. She did not know because the small cinder block shop with the hand-painted sign reading Hale's Garage gave no indication that anything of value had ever happened inside it. Stay with this one to the end. Marcus had opened the shop 6 years earlier, 3 months after Claire's funeral, because their daughter Emma needed a parent who came home at night. The shop sat on a quarter acre at the edge of town where rent was cheap and highway breakdowns sometimes wandered in. He took the work that came, oil changes, brake jobs, timing belts. He did not advertise. He kept a single bay lift, a parts washer older than Emma, and a rolling toolbox that had belonged to his father. The work was simple, and it allowed him to pick Emma up from school every afternoon at 3:15. She was 7 now. She carried a stuffed rabbit named Clover everywhere. A gift from Claire during the last hospital stay, and she sat on a stool in the corner most evenings doing homework while Marcus worked. She did not remember her mother's face clearly anymore, but she remembered her voice. "Why do you fix the same kind of cars now, Dad? Why did you stop working on the fancy ones?" He had answered carefully. "Because the fancy ones took me away too much, and I didn't want you to lose anyone else. The shop had a quiet reputation for being the place you went when the dealership said the repair cost more than the car. Marcus did not rush. He explained what was broken in plain language, showed you the fail part, gave you a price that reflected hours, not markup. One customer, Ray Purcell, had brought in a dying Corolla 2 years earlier and started showing up Saturdays to help for free. Ray was 61, a retired machinist, and he did not ask about the framed photograph in the back office showing a younger Marcus beside a 1937 Talbot Lago teardrop coupe at Pebble Beach. He had noticed it. He had never mentioned it. Victoria Ashford had come to the shop 4 months earlier in a midnight blue Bentley with a check engine light her dealership could not clear. Marcus had been under a Honda Civic. He rolled out, wiped his hands, and listened while she explained her service advisor had recommended him for European diagnostics. He traced the fault to a failed emission sensor and replaced it in 40 minutes. The bill was $170. She looked at the invoice as though it contained a misprint, paid in cash, and left without thanks. 2 weeks later, she returned with a Range Rover, and this time she stayed, asking questions that felt like audit. Where did you train? Who did you work for? Why are you here and not somewhere that matches your skill set? Marcus answered only what was necessary, and when she pushed, he said he preferred small work now. She had not believed him. He could see it in the what her gaze lingered on the tools, on the framed Talbot photograph. The engines arrived 3 weeks after that visit. Marcus stood in the lot and looked at the heap while the driver unhooked the chains and drove away. The blocks were worthless except for recycling weight. Ray pulled up 10 minutes later and stood beside Marcus without speaking. Then he said quietly that it took effort to be that petty. Marcus folded the card and put it in his pocket. They would move the engines to the back fence and deal with them later. There was a Subaru timing belt job on the schedule. Emma came home from school that afternoon and saw the pile before Marcus could explain. She walked over slowly, Clover under one arm, and looked up at the stack with the kind of seriousness that made her seem older than 7. She asked if they were broken. He said yes. She stood there a moment, then turned and looked at him with an expression that carried only clarity. You could fix them, she said, if you wanted to. It was not a question. Marcus looked at his daughter and felt the way he always felt when she spoke with Claire's cadence. Proud, shattered. He told her yes, he could, but it would take a very long time. She nodded and said that was okay because they weren't going anywhere. That night, Marcus walked out to the pile and stood under the floodlight Ray had helped him mount. He ran his hand over the nearest block, a straight 6 from something European, and felt the cold, rough surface of an engine condemned and discarded. He thought about the Talbot, about the year he had spent bringing a seized V-12 back to life, about the sound it made the first time it fired, about the way Claire had smiled when he called her at 2 a.m. to tell her it ran. He thought about the fact that Victoria Ashford believed he was exactly what he appeared to be, a small-town mechanic with modest skill and no history worth mentioning. She had no idea what lived underneath. He pulled the card from his pocket and read the message again. Then he walked inside, opened the drawer where he kept documents he almost never touched, and found the folder holding his Rheingold certifications, his apprenticeship records from Porsche in Zuffenhausen, the reference letter from the chief engineer at Bugatti Mosheim. He did not open it. He simply held it, feeling its weight, then put it back and closed the drawer. The work would speak for itself. Marcus began with the straight 6 on a Saturday morning. He pulled it from the pile, set it on the engine stand, and spent the first hour cleaning the exterior until he could read the casting numbers. A BMW M30, early 80s, seized because someone had run it without oil until the bearings welded to the crankshaft. The damage was total by most standards. Ray arrived before noon, saw the block, and asked if Marcus was serious. Marcus said he was. Ray looked at the pile outside and said 9 engines at this level would take the better part of a year. Marcus nodded. Ray asked what the point was. Marcus did not answer right away. He wiped his hands, walked to where Emma sat with a coloring book, and watched her a moment. Then he turned back and said quietly that his daughter believed he could do it, and that was reason enough. The teardown took 3 days. Marcus pulled the head. removed the oil pan, extracted the crankshaft with surgical care. Every component went into labeled bins, every measurement into a notebook. He checked bore wear with a dial gauge, measured journal taper with a micrometer, inspected every surface under light that revealed invisible flaws. The block was salvageable. The crank was not. He sourced a replacement from Germany, a remanufactured unit that cost more than the entire engine was worth. And when Ray saw the invoice, he asked again what Marcus was trying to prove. Marcus said he was not trying to prove anything. He was simply doing the work the way it was supposed to be done. By the end of the second week, the M30 was half assembled. New bearings, new rings, new timing components, all fitted with clearances measured to the 10,000th. Marcus worked evenings after Emma went to bed and weekends while she sat on her stool asking questions. She wanted to know why he checked everything twice. He told her metal does not forgive carelessness. She wanted to know why he wrote everything down. He told her memory fails, but records do not. She wanted to know if the engine would run when finished. He said if he did his job correctly, it would run better than when it was new. She thought about that, then said it must be nice to make broken things work again. He looked at her and felt the tightness in his chest. "It is," he said. The M30 fired on a Thursday evening in early October. Marcus primed the oil system, set the timing, turned the key with cautious optimism. It caught on the second revolution, settled into smooth idle, ran without smoke or noise or vibration. Ray stood beside him listening, and after a full minute said it sounded factory. "Better than factory," Marcus said. He let it run 20 minutes, checked for leaks, shut it down. Emma had watched from the doorway, and when the engine went quiet, she walked over and asked if that meant it was fixed. Marcus said it did. She asked what he was going to do with it. He said he did not know yet, but it was no longer scrap. Victoria Ashford returned 3 days later in a Porsche 911 Turbo and walked into the bay as though invited. Marcus was torquing head bolts on the second engine, a Jaguar inline 6, and did not stop working when she spoke. She said she had heard he was rebuilding the engines. She had not expected him to actually try. She said it with amusement that made clear she thought the exercise beneath him. Marcus set down the torque wrench and met her eyes without expression. He asked if there was something she needed. She looked past him at the Jaguar block, at the labeled bins, at the notebook open on the bench. Her smile thinned. She said she had a proposition. If he could make all 9 engines run, she would pay $50,000 for the lot. She said it as though offering charity. Marcus wiped his hands and told her he was not interested in selling them. She asked what he planned to do with 9 rebuilt engines, if not sell them. He said that was not her concern. Her expression shifted, and for the first time he saw something other than amusement. Confusion, maybe. The Jaguar took longer than the BMW. The block had a crack in the water jacket that required welding, and Marcus spent 2 days preparing the surface. preheating the iron, running a bead that would hold compression for another 100,000 miles. Ray watched and said most people would have called the block scrap. Most people, Marcus said, did not know how to weld cast iron correctly. He finished machining the deck, honed the cylinders, assembled the bottom end with the same methodical care. The work was unhurried, precise. Every bearing checked twice. Every fastener torqued to specification. When the Jaguar fired, it idled so smoothly. Ray put a nickel on the valve cover, and it did not move. Emma asked him once during the third engine why he was spending so much time on something no one had asked him to do. They were in the shop on a Sunday afternoon, she working on a school project while Marcus cleaned parts. He thought about the question, then told her that the work was not about what people asked for. It was about what you knew you could do and whether you did it. She looked up and asked if that was why Mom married him. He felt the air leave his lungs. He set down the brush and turned to face her, and he saw Claire in the shape of her eyes. He said, yes, that was part of it. Your mother believed that how you do anything is how you do everything, and she did not tolerate half measures. Emma nodded slowly, as though filing the information somewhere important. Then she went back to her project, and neither of them spoke for the rest of the hour. By December, Marcus had finished 6 engines. The M30, the Jaguar, an Alfa Romeo 5.6, a Porsche Flat 6, a Mercedes Inline 4, a Volvo Red Block. They sat on stands along the back wall, each tagged with a build sheet documenting every measurement, every part, every procedure. Ray had helped with heavy work, but the precision tasks Marcus had done in alone late at night, with focus that erased everything except the component in front of him. The engines were not perfect. Perfect was theoretical, but they were correct, and correct could be trusted. Victoria came back in January. She did not call ahead. She appeared in the doorway on a Tuesday afternoon with a man in a suit that fit too well to be off the rack. Victoria introduced him as her director of acquisitions. She said they had been discussing Marcus's project. She said the word as though it were quaint. Marcus was working on the 7th engine, a Datsun L series full of rust and water, and did not stand. He asked what she wanted. She said she wanted to make a revised offer. $200,000 for all 9 engines, fully rebuilt, certified, and delivered. The director opened his portfolio and produced a contract with a signature line at the bottom. Victoria said it was more than fair, generous given that the engines had been scrapped when she sent them. Marcus looked at the contract, then at her, and said no. She blinked. The director glanced at her, uncertain. She asked why not. Marcus said, because they are not for sale. Not to you. Not to anyone. She stared at him, searching for the angle she had missed. Then her expression hardened. She said he was wasting his time, that no one would care about 9 rebuilt engines from a no-name shop, that he was proving nothing except that he had more pride than sense. Marcus set down his wrench and stood. He was not tall, but he was still, and stillness had weight. He told her quietly that she had made an assumption about who he was, and that the assumption was wrong. He told her that when the 9th engine was finished, she would understand. Then he walked to the bay door and held it open. She left without another word. The 9th engine was a Cosworth BDA, a race-bred 4-cylinder that had grenaded so completely Ray had asked if it was even worth the attempt. Marcus said yes, because it was the last one, and because the BDA separated craftsmen from mechanics. It took him 6 weeks. The block required sleeving. The head required new valve seats. The crank required balancing to a tolerance most shops did not own equipment to measure. He did all of it. When finished, the engine sat on the stand like something that belonged in a museum. Every surface clean, every component true. He test ran it on a March afternoon with Emma and Ray watching, and it screamed to 8,000 revolutions per minute without hesitation. Ray said it was the best thing he had ever heard. Emma said it sounded angry. Marcus said it sounded alive. He did not call Victoria. He called the registrar at Pebble Beach and asked about certification requirements for the Concours d'Elegance Preservation class. Then he called a transport company and arranged for all 9 engines to be shipped to California. Then he made one more call to Dieter Cole, chief engineer at Rheingold, who had worked beside him for 8 years. Dieter listened to what Marcus had done, asked 3 clarifying questions, and said he would make the arrangements. The engines were displayed at Pebble Beach in August, mounted on custom stands in the preservation tent, each accompanied by a placard detailing the damage, the rebuild, the certification. Dieter had flown in from Stuttgart to verify the work personally, and his report was included. Each engine met or exceeded original factory specifications, and the craftsmanship represented the highest standard of the mechanical restoration he had encountered outside a dedicated Coachworks facility. The preservation class judges awarded Marcus first place. The Haggard evaluation team appraised the collection at $640,000, and Victoria Ashford, who had flown out because one of her clients had a car in the main competition, walked into the tent and stopped in front of the display as though she had hit a wall. Marcus was not there. He had not attended, but Ray was, because Marcus had sent him as representative, and Ray watched Victoria read the placard, read Dieter's report, and then stand very still for a long time. When she finally turned and saw Ray, her face had changed. The amusement was gone. So was the condescension. What remained was something closer to shock. She asked quietly where Marcus was. Ray said he was at home with his daughter. She asked if he was planning to sell the engines. Ray said no. She asked what he was planning to do with them. Ray said Marcus had donated them to a technical college in Arizona, where they would be used to teach students how to rebuild engines correctly. She stared at him. Then she asked if she could speak to Marcus. Ray gave her a business card with the shop number and said Marcus did not make a habit of taking calls, but that she was welcome to try. She called 3 days later. Marcus was in the shop finishing an oil change on a Camry, and he let the phone ring 4 times before he answered it. Victoria's voice was different, smaller. She said she had seen the display. She had read the certification. She had not known. Marcus said nothing. She said she wanted to apologize. She had misjudged him. If he was ever interested in consulting work, in restoration projects, in anything that matched his skill set, she had clients who would pay whatever he asked. Marcus listened to all of it, then said very calmly that he appreciated the offer, but was not interested. He said he had the work he wanted and the life he wanted, and that neither required her validation. There was a long silence on the line. Then she said she understood, and she hung up. Emma asked him that night while they were eating dinner if the fancy engines were really going to a school. Marcus said they were. She asked if that meant other people would learn to fix things the way he did. He said that was the idea. She thought about that, chewing slowly, then said that Mom would have liked that. Marcus felt the tightness again, the one that came when Emma spoke with Claire's clarity. He said yes, she would have. The shop is still open. Marcus still takes the work that comes. Yeah. And on the wall beside the Talbot photograph, there is now a second frame. The Pebble Beach certificate, mounted next to a picture of 9 engines that were once scrap and are now teaching tools. Emma is 8. She still carries Clover. And every evening she sits on her stool and watches her father work, learning that value is not given by others. It is built quietly by your own hands.